All right, did you guys read at all? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Some of what Dave Wilson wrote about Aranda.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He brought up everything from the Berenstain Bears to the Rabbit to everything else as well, and how he is different. And he also made this comment that he actually, Aranda's saying that 3 out of every 10 prospects really are fits for Baylor for what they want. That, you'd like to have all of them, but there are certain things at Baylor and who he is and what they're looking for. And on top of that, they're not able to go get the cream of the crop. And they're probably, if somebody wants to come, obviously Novosad's a very highly rated quarterback among some others. But I thought that was very interesting. And he said, listen, 3 out of every 10 fit who we are. And now the question is, you got to find out exactly who those 3 are.
Well, yeah, you're probably not going to get all 3 of those guys every time. So that adds to the challenge. But it's recruiting for a place like Baylor, and not to the same level, but if you want, especially when you decided to set a standard on who the guys you want that you want fits, program fits, not just guys with big stars after their name, but guys whose personality fits the program, you kind of have to recruit in the way that David Shaw does at Stanford. Look, David Shaw can't just walk in and say, man, that guy's really fast. I hope he's good at school. He knows before he walks into a place, this guy can cut it at Stanford academically or he can't. And with Baylor, I mean, part of that is the academics and part of that is just what Dave Aranda wants for the culture fit of his guys on his team.
There was a point where Coach Johnson, their defensive line coach at Baylor, said he walked up to Aranda, who was at the locker after they had just won the national championship, and it looked like, it didn't say miserable, he just didn't look happy. There was something missing, and LSU had just won the national championship. And he said, Aranda said, I felt like I was at LSU like I was a machine. I didn't really talk. I got to a point where I was there long enough to where people kind of understood that, and they would protect me or shield me from talking, and then just because it became worse, I would remove myself. I just wouldn't engage more than anything. He has mentioned that to me and others before, that he just felt like it was too much, that football was just, not that it's not a big deal, and not that it's not a big deal at Baylor and what he's doing, but it was overwhelming him with who he was, and he felt like he was becoming more and more of an introvert. And the opportunity to go to Baylor, and Mack Roach felt this way when he interviewed Aranda, was the perfect time for him to get away and be who he is himself.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we need to do something like that. I hear him. I don't know him fully well like that, but yeah, you do start to become just whatever your job says you are. And, for some people, that's fine. They embrace their job and they love their job and work 24/7, and that's all they do. I'm not built like that, though, and there is more to it. And I think there's probably more to him, but because he loves football so much, he's so into that he doesn't even realize that he's in that deep, and then has to finally, get shaken free and, hey, you do realize you're way down this hole here, and might be good to get out every once in a while and see some sunshine. So yeah, I'm sure that was life changing in some ways, and I'm sure it's on the personal side and the professional side something that's been very beneficial. I mean, clearly it has. But look at what they did last year, and that was him getting out of his shell and changing who he was a bit. And it's not easy to do. To look in the mirror and have to make changes, especially when you're sitting there with a spotlight like he has on him and having to do it in that scenario, not doing it, necessarily behind the scenes when not a lot of people are watching you. So, yeah, and to be at his age doing it as well, it's not like you're in your 20s or below still where everything's constantly changing and you're constantly changing, trying to figure out who you are. Here's a man who's, early 40s who's still figuring it out. So, yeah, I think that's kind of a lesson to everybody out there that you're never really done changing unless you just choose to be, and you don't have to be stuck in a rut or just stuck on fixated on one thing all the time. Even if it is your passion, you got to kind of take a time out every once in a while. So I think he's taking his time outs. He's learned a lot more about who he is and how he does things, and that's going to be to the benefit of any football program, and that's Baylor that he's leading. That's going to be beneficial for the Bears and has been beneficial for them.
Dennis Johnson, the defensive line coach who was with him at LSU, right after the game talking about the national championship, everybody's excited. I walk in and he's sitting in his locker, and he was like, that's it? We just won a national championship. To him, it had to be more. There's more to be gained. I believe it's what led him to Baylor.
I heard that from another coach when we had like the mixer. They kind of said that about being like there's got to be more to it than just what that was, which is kind of interesting. And I'll tell you this about Dave Aranda. Of course, none of us really knew anything because he didn't say anything to anybody for so long. I knew him as an amazingly gifted defensive coordinator and defensive mind from Wisconsin and LSU. But I didn't know anything about him, and his personality was nothing. All I knew was, like, here's a young, bald guy who scowls a little bit when they show him on the sideline. But it's not even just kind of a scowl. It's just he's got that look about him, and he's very focused. Yeah, I would not have pegged him for who he is because we didn't know anything about him. He's completely been different than I thought.
We couldn't know anything about him, other than when he was introduced early on after Matt Rule took the job in Carolina, then the coaching search. And then you had COVID shut everything down where he couldn't even – there's players that didn't get to know him, much less us in the media that had a chance to get to know him.
Well, and I think people need to realize, too, that not everybody's built the same. Like, there's an event tonight that, it's like a meet and greet. Some people are like, hey, cool, man, can't wait to go get a drink, can't wait to meet some people. And then there's people like me who are like, I don't want to freaking go to this thing for the life of me because I don't know. I'm not like that. And I think Dave Aranda's probably more like me. And it's not that you don't like people. It's not that you don't want to be social. It's not that you want to go hide out in your cave or anything. It's just like you don't necessarily need that other energy to be just fine with what you're doing. Does that make sense? Like, you don't have to.
There's things that a lot of people may not want to be at, but there's also part of what you do for a living that almost puts you in those positions, and you got to just kind of take it and go with it, whether you want to be there or not.
Right. So that's Dave Aranda. Yeah. Dave Aranda doesn't want to be doing media sessions. Dave Aranda doesn't want to be doing handshakes all the time and functions and things like that. I think that deep down he just wants to coach football, but he realized when he became a head coach that, there's another part of it that you do have to glad hand. You do have to go to fundraisers. You do have to do all these different things that don't come with being just a straight-up assistant coach or a coordinator. And so to what we've been talking about here, that's part of how he's had to change, and that's uncomfortable, and it's not fun. And people that don't deal with it don't understand it. They're like, why? It's so stupid. Just go out there and talk. It's like
you're getting paid $5 or $6, $8 million a year.
That's not the point of it, though. It's not the point. It's just like it doesn't. You just don't like the feeling of it, and so
his press conferences have actually become somewhat entertaining because we now understand him better.
Right, because he's gotten more comfortable with it, is my point, is that, it's not something he enjoyed doing. Like I said, it's something that he had to kind of do, and he has because he's kind of had to. And, he's come out of his shell a little bit, and he's gotten more comfortable, and his press conferences have gotten more entertaining. But it's a process. It's not just you flip a personality switch. Some people can do that, but I don't think Dave Aranda is a fake person that can just flip that switch, and that's why I think he's successful is because once you see him flip it, it's genuine. It's not just fake for the sake of, I got to do this for a couple hours, put on my happy face. He is who he is, and you're getting the authentic, real deal, and that's why he's successful.
RH5 asking us, did part of what Mac Rhodes said, at some point Aranda will move on and concern you, is Aranda going to be a Grant Taft at Baylor or more like Brian Kelly? He's not going to be Brian Kelly. What Mac Rhodes said, at some point, it could be 7, 8, 10, 12 years from now, and that not happen at all, is that at some point there might be something else that he would rather, what he would want to do, but that doesn't appear to be even on his radar. When you had LSU, Florida, Oklahoma, USC, Notre Dame, all the other jobs that were open that his name, Washington, all these other jobs that were opened, and he never sniffed, and so he is at Baylor. You could sit there. Baylor fans have been through that before. They went through that even when Art Briles was flirting with a couple of different schools, Texas Tech and UT. And you could devour yourself if you're a fan of that school base or that fan of that program, and even the Matt Rule part. So Baylor fans are kind of used to that. But this is a unique individual. That was the word. Dave Wilson will join us on the article and his conversations. I think he said he interviewed some 25 or 26 different people to get a feel about Dave Aranda. 25 or 26. And then wrote the article that came out yesterday. Hooters